Already. So today the topic is building the legally compliant blockchain startup. How do we do that? In India itself, we have our guest speakers who are lawyers from reputed companies of their own working in this space, particularly Web3. And this community itself started around August when we first did our Enterprise Utility Blockchain Summit. It was focused on the utility of blockchain technology, which was the focus because right now in the crypto industry entirely, there is so much of a speculative market and so much of a disregard for the understanding and the utility of blockchain. That's what our focus was. And this is the theme even in our entire BSC blockchain community, which we call the big blockers community in India. Why we call ourselves the big blockers? There was a civil war that happened in Bitcoin. The original version of Bitcoin split into three folds. And there were the small blockers and there were the big blockers. The small blockers believed in the Bitcoin vision of a small block size and scaling by using multiple layers off chain. And the big blockers believed in scaling the block size as it is and increasing the capacity and scalability of the blockchain and not changing the protocol from this design that Satoshi left and not having any changes to it. So the big blockers community is what became the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision protocol. And you can see here how the fork happened and Satoshi's vision was restored as Bitcoin SE protocol after the Genesis upgrade. And right now we are going for Terra node, which is a terabyte size block version of Bitcoin. Right now the popular version of Bitcoin is only 1 MB size per 10 minutes for the entire global transactions that happen in 10 minutes. And with terabyte size we can address the scalability issues that exist with blockchain technology that people are accustomed to. This scaling war resulted in a block size capacity demonstration of the BSC blockchain to even surpass Visa, MasterCard levels of activity that is needed. And it goes beyond because what we need for the internet is much beyond. Because imagine it's the email protocol that came up in the beginning of the internet and it was suffocated to only 1 MB in block size, 1 MB worth of emails in 10 minutes across the globe. So obviously it wouldn't work. But with scalable block size, we can have the entire internet running in the future. Because you need a micropayment based system on the internet. That's the vision of Bitcoin that was supposed to be. Small amounts of payment of 1 paisa for loading a web page, of transacting with others internationally, globally. That's the natural version of the economy of the internet, the data economy that we are going to enable again. Right now, the amount of transactions which we do is what our metric is, what we measure ourselves by. How many transactions, how much utility are we doing of the blockchain? And we continuously demonstrate the maximum number of transactions every single day on the BSC blockchain compared to other blockchains. So this, as I was telling you, we began with the EBS Enterprise Utility Blockchain Summit in August in India. We started a co-working space for all the startups working in the BSC blockchain space in Bangalore. We had a meetup. We are continuing to do multiple meetups across the country to educate people about the original Bitcoin protocol and how to build on it. And even this meetup is supposed to be that, to focus again on the legal aspects of how to build a blockchain startup. The agenda for today is we are going to get a speech by Apurva on the legal aspects of building a blockchain startup in India, what to consider, and also we have with us Anuradha Chaufhary to speak about the IP properties of blockchain and Web3 that needs to be considered. We'll have a panel discussion and open question and answer. Every one of you, everyone founders as well here, willing to learn and ask questions about how to build, and then we'll have a networking session and we'll around. So, head over to Apurva. Apurva Agrawal is founder of Universal Legal, a legal firm based in Bombay, and he's been speaking about an expert in blockchain side of law.
Okay, over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'll try to address how to build up a blockchain-based community or an entity which is legally compliant in India. Let me start by saying something dramatic. India, as of right now, does not legally recognize blockchain or bitcoins. There have been lots of debates around it. It's still a very gray area. I mean, people are investing in bitcoins and blockchains and all, but still an under-regulated or not regulated market in this country as of today. There are other countries which are regulating blockchain and bitcoins, including Dubai, Singapore, US, and a few other countries. So lots of entities are being set up there and then coming out in India to do the marketing and business out here. But this is the background we should know before we head into. So whatever I'm going to do is an interpretation of the existing laws in India and how it can or will affect blockchain and the Bitcoin community at large. I think I'll skip the first few slides. I would assume most of you know what are blockchain and what are cryptos, so I don't want to take too much of time in as I said earlier, there are no specific laws in this country governing this entire area. About 3-4 years back, the only thing which came out with the Reserve Bank of India was to ban cryptocurrencies. Okay. Ban, forget, I don't want it because Reserve Bank of India, in all its wisdom, regulates all the currencies and the rupee. They didn't want anybody to compete with them. Rightly, wrongly, I'm not getting that debate, but that was the thing. The association called Internet Mobile Users Association, or Lose Association, then filed a case against RBI in the Supreme Court against this ban of RBI, and Supreme Court did away with the ban. So technically, even though crypto or Bitcoin, that ban has been removed, is still not regulated. However, to add to that, even though the government of India does not want to regulate it, it still wants to earn out of it. And how does it do that? In the recent budget,
80%.
right. So, well, can you tax industry which is not legally recognized? Is still an issue. Or is it legally recognized and yet you're taxing it? That's a debate I'm not going to get into, but that's what the reality of the situation is as of right now. Okay, what are the applications for these blockchain? And for the last half of 40 minutes, I've been having this debate with some of the members of this group who approached me. Money transfers, financial exchanges, lending, insurance, real estate, transaction where you execute smart contracts and property can be transferred from one person to another without actually putting the sub-registrar's office. Debate out here is how will you pay the standardization fee because the government doesn't want to lose out on the revenue. Can hacking be stopped? Because if people can hack their transaction, then somebody can hack in the system and become owners of large properties, including Antilia, without location money going in. So there are lots of issues around it, but these are the applications which are available today. I'll skip this. I think everyone knows what a cryptocurrency is. I will not get into the details of it. Ultimately, just remember one thing, cryptocurrency is not a currency, it's not money. Okay, it's actually a computer algorithm which has a value to it. Whether it's 1 rupee or 100 rupees or 5 lakhs or 5 crore, that's debatable, depending on demand and supply, like any other market economic scenario. The price of this cryptocurrency, as I said, is arbitrary, unless it's asset backed, right? Where some of the Times Lab and Reapp is trying to do have assets or things back it up. So then the price will not will depend on the value of that asset which is being thing. So it technically comes out as a derivative rather than anything else. Virtual currencies are like Bitcoin, which is state free because I can click the button and transfer anywhere I want to whoever I want without taking the approval of any entity like your bank or asking anybody's permission to do it. Today, if I have to transfer my money from one account to your account, I still have to get the OTP and the bank's approval to do it. Without that, I can't do it, right? In this case, I don't need to do all that. Click of a button, everything gets done off. Right? So that is something we should understand. So as I was saying, it removes the need of a trusted third party, such as a government authority, agency, bank, any third party which backs it as a legal tender. So as I said, we are now going to understand which laws may be applicable to this sector, because there is no one particular law applicable to it, and how we can interpret that in the case of blockchain, especially bitcoins and cryptos. Quite a few of them: Constitution of India, Reserve Bank of India, FEMA, RBI, Coinage Act, SCRE, Sales of Goods Act, and many more. There were lots of other things which I am not going to cover today because of lack of time and everything else. Okay. Now, by the Constitution, it mandates that only the central government can make laws on coins and currency. Fundamentally. So, the state of Maharashtra cannot make any law related to this. It has to be made by the parliament. What does the RBI do? It is to regulate currency and keep a monetary stability in the country. So that's why you see the monetary policy announced every 6 months, increase rates and blah blah blah, interest rates and all that stuff is linked to monetary policy. If we have a parallel economy like virtual currency, will that get not affected? Yes, it would. So that's why the RBI wanted to ban it or regulate it, which till date is not very clear what the status is. The RBI Act under Section 2 mandates that only RBI has the right to issue currency. Okay? If you see the notes which is said, is issued by the Reserve Bank of India, not by the Indian Bank, not by the government. And it bears the signature of Governor of Reserve Bank of India, not the Finance Ministry. Correct? So that is what is currency. Understand that. So the central government technically has no role to play in the issuance of currency. And because of this definition which you see under section 22, Bitcoin is not a currency because it is not defined under section 2 as currency of RBI. So if Bitcoin is not a currency, then what is it? Okay, let's go into FEMA now. FEMA defines currency, and in foreign currency, anything apart from Indian currency. Now, if it's not Indian currency, Bitcoins will be deemed to be foreign currency. I'll leave that question open. Bottom line is, virtual currencies like Bitcoin are not being designated by the government or by RBI or any government authority to be legal tender, and that's what the position is as of date. So today, if people are accepting it is more for barter than actually a currency being exchanged. Okay, where I'll give you one bottle of water, you give me something in exchange for that, except for money. That's what we call barter. That's not, cannot be used as a currency. Okay, now the FEMA defines currency notes, which includes cash in forms of coins and banknotes, and this definition again does not include cryptocurrency. Okay. Now under section 3 of FEMA, it prohibits anybody to deal with foreign currency or make any payment for to or for any person outside India in any manner whatsoever. So it's not that I can buy Bitcoin here in Indian rupee and transfer that Bitcoin to somebody outside India. That technically will be a violation under FEMA. Because that Bitcoin is acting as a form of payment to a person outside the country. So technically, according to me, it's in violation of FEMA. So if people are transferring any bitcoins or any form of that by click of button to a person outside this country, you are technically, according to me, violating FEMA. Because only people who can do that or receive that as per FEMA, authorized person, like the foreign exchange dealers, as authorized by RBI or the government of India. Then the next question somebody asked me sometime back, would it not be a security or a derivative? Security Contract Act, Section 2H defines securities as shares, scrips, stocks, bonds, debentures, or other marketable securities of a like means any incorporate body or another body corporate. Bitcoin is a decentralized entity. It's not linked to one entity or one body corporate. Therefore, technically, it's not a commodity. Derivative is a derivative of what we define our shares thing, like a mutual fund unit. It's a collection of shares, right? So you get a one unit of mutual fund means you got a part of that. So therefore, technically again, this would not come under a security or a derivative. Now, Section 23 of the Indian Contract Act makes dealing with or anything which is illegal, when you transact in that concern, that contract itself is deemed to be illegal or void as issue. Now the question here is whether a Bitcoin is illegal or not recognized by law, or what is it? I don't have an answer to that, so don't ask me that. Okay. Because on one hand, the government is taxing that commodity, second hand is not recognized under any law, or not is making any attempt to make any regulation for that. So for me, I mean, the way the government of India is acting in this era up to date is, I mean, very grayish. I'm not too sure where they're heading. Even though they have launched a paper to launch a digital currency sometime in the future, I think it's already launched. But whether Bitcoin or stuff comes into that, I'm not too sure for that. Now, why I'm bringing up this Prudential Money Laundering Act is if I'm doing any transfer under FEMA or to a foreign party through Bitcoins or crypto or blockchain, whatever form you call it, it means I am technically transferring something of value outside the country and therefore probably doing money laundering. Probably, I'm not saying you are, but probably. So that may hamper your Money Laundering Act and may get you triggered. And remember, this act is a criminal offence, it's not a civil offence. So if you do something under this act and CBI and FEMA inquiry comes in and for ED, then you're behind the bar for some time. Okay. If somebody, I mean, not that there are no Bitcoins are in this country, there are lots of people who launched it, lots of people doing cryptocurrency, lots of people own cryptocurrency exchanges in this country. Correct? And I think quite a few of you guys, at least I don't deal with cryptos at all as an investor, but I believe some of you guys do. You would need to still comply with the KYC form on the norms as provided by the RBI and various things. That includes giving your Aadhaar card number, your PAN, your passport copy, and blah blah blah, which you need to know so that in case anything goes wrong, we are able to trace you back where that money went down. Can crypto be defined as a commodity? Okay. As per me, it cannot be defined as a commodity. Okay, because it's not recognized as per under the Commodities Exchange Act. Okay, it's an agricultural, it's not a commodity technically. Correct? So therefore, According to me, cryptos can also not be treated as a commodity. I've already covered cross-border transactions, FEMA. FDI, though, is again very grey area, whether it can be allowed to in cryptos or bitcoins or blockchain, yes or no, but still a very grey area. There's some FDI investors which have come into this area and people are transacting based on that, but I mean, it's a very, very grey area for me. People are tweaking the laws or stretching it to fit into that perfection, but for me it's still a very, very grey area. Taxation in crypto. Finance ministry has to take a meat or pie, right? Whether you do illegal stuff or recognized or unrecognized stuff. Now, there are two types of tax which is there. One is the income tax, and sorry, it should not be the, and two is the GST, goods and services tax. So both taxes are now made applicable to buying and selling of cryptos or bitcoins. So whenever there's a profit, there's one blanket rate of 30% paid to the government of India. But if there's a loss, you don't get a set off. Like other businesses, if there's a loss, you get set off. Here there's no set off because this is all what they call speculation. It's not a trading business. Okay? This speculation. That's how they defined it. The FFB is 30% tax, like a lottery. Simple, no question asked. And GST is, I think, in the 18% bracket if you're trading in this cryptos. Now, I think I just defined what business now is. So that, in a nutshell, is what your blockchain law says or how is applicable. Now, the next few minutes, I will just advise or take you through how to set up a business entity if you want to trade or do work in the crypto or the Bitcoin or blockchain area. How do you start working? I mean, this is a generic conversation. It can be made applicable to any kind of business, but more specific. When you're setting your own business, there are 4 or 5 fundamental questions that people need to ask before you decide on the kind of structure and the kind of location, everything else which you need to do. One, where to set up, location. 2, what type of organization, that's a business question which we'll answer. Then the procedure for setting up that organization. What are the post, set up the organization, what are the process you do post setting up the organization, and what are the continuous essentials for the business. On a year-to-year basis, what you need to do once the business is set up. So first question, where to set up. That's a commercial decision, not a legal decision. It will obviously depend on the nature of the business you're doing and to where your target customers are. That's where your primary location should be. Now, what type of organization? There are 4 types of basic business legal structures which are created in this country or allowed as per the various laws. One is a company. Company, again, there are 2 types: a listed company on a stock exchange, and 2 is a private company. I'm not going to go into distinction, but just be with a public company or private company. Then is a limited liability company, which is only a few years old, one of the most recent type of organization which has come into existence. There is a partnership, and the 4th, the most easiest to do, is a sole proprietorship concept. See, a company is technically registered under Companies Act 2030. The separate legal entity distinct from the shareholders and directors, and it's got limited liability. The ideal way of doing business. Okay, not the ideal way, it's the second most ideal way, I would say. But if you want to fundraise and stuff, then it's the ideal way to get into. There's no limit as to number of shareholders you can have in a company. It can be any number you choose to. what the basic features of the company are. It's a body corporate that means the owners and the entity are totally distinct. Owners are known as shareholders. Company is managed by the directors of BOD, board of directors. There has to be minimum 2 shareholders and minimum 2 directors. Registration is required for a company with the rest of companies. Every shareholder owns a share in the capital of the company, depending on the capital which he puts in, proportionate shares he gets. Company is recognized and regulated by the Companies Act 2013, so it's heavily regulated, and if it's a listed company, then even the SEBI gets involved. And suited for medium and large scale operations. So that's what basically a company is. Then the LLP, which is my favorite form of doing a business entity, because I believe this is more tax efficient in the hands of the owners of property, in the hands of the owners of the business. It's like a partnership but with a limited, it's a cross between a company and a partnership. Right? 2 partners, separate entity, limited liability. Less of compliance work, less regulated than what a company is. Again, it is a body corporate. Instead of shareholders, also you've got partners. It is recognized by the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 20 something. Registration is required to form an LLP. No limit to the maximum number of partners. There has to be 2 partners. Liability of the partner limit to the share capital which they put in the company. Beyond that, there is no liability. And suitable for all types of operation, you can take to any limit. So that's what LLP is. Then is a partnership like an LP, but it doesn't have limited liability. It doesn't need to be registered anywhere, but we advise you to get registered with the rest of firms under the Partnership Act. No compulsory requirement. It's not a body corporate, so where the partners are equally liable for the business of the thing. Registration is optional, but we as an law firm advise you to get it done. The biggest disadvantage of this entity is the liability of the partners is unlimited. So if the partnership firm runs a debt of let's say 5 crores, if the partnership firm is not able to pay it, then the partners have to make good from their own pockets and their own personal assets. Suitable for small and medium scale operation, but the liability will not be very huge. Sole proprietorship, instead of partnership, is a sole owner, one single owner can do it. Easy to form, no registration required except for getting a GST registration done, which I talked about. The owner is the king of business. मैं जो हूँ मैं ही हूँ, बाहर में जाए कोई और, okay? That kind of attitude. Liability of the owners unlimited. So whatever the business does, all the profit belongs to him, all the losses belong to him. And owner is responsible for managing the business. Procedure for setting up, I'll not dwell much into it, that's more of a legal process. Company oversees the 6 steps to be kept in confidence again to start the business. AMA, filing the ROC approvals, quite a few of them. In a partnership, you can form a partnership agreement and get that registered with either LLP or a normal partnership. And proprietorship, no formal procedure. Business you can start even right now while we speak. Once you set up the entity, then you formalize just the beginning. In order for further action should be taken. The 4 primary things you need to do is take an office space or work from home, virtually also not go to the purpose to do that from home also.
Excuse me, 1 second.
Like how the people call when I'm speaking. Okay.
What you are doing great. The people who are interested.
Then
No, they are from college and they had to catch batch and
no, that's okay. So you either take an office or you work from home. Go as plotters to work from home if you can, what called virtual offices, or you work in a co-working space like this, depending on your budgets and your costs and everything else. I mean, if you're taking your own office, you need to electricity and other connection, and telecom and internet connection to kickstart. Most importantly, get your bank accounts open so that you can operate and receive and send out money. The three main tax thing is obtain a PAN number, your GST and your TAN. TAN is for TDS deduction. PAN is for tax filing and GST is for insurance tax filing. And if there is any business specific approval, lots of business needs specific approvals for the airline industry needs approval of the airport authority and everything else. For insurance broking needs the IRD approval. Blockchain as of that no approvals are required, but in case something gets regulated in the future, you may have additional approvals required. But if you're like getting into fractional ownership or real estate, then you will need to go to RERA and other places. So depending on what kind of blockchain you're doing, there will be industry specific approvals which you may need. Then obviously having a manpower, you need the kind of manpower to run your own business. So that's where you decide what kind of manpower and how many and everything. And the continuous associations after you've set up the entire thing. One, compliance of all applicable laws, filing your tax returns on a year-to-year basis, maintains of books of account and payroll. These are three essential things we're talking about, many more, but just giving the key highlights. And how we can help you is set up entire, what we talked about, set up entire package for you guys and take it forward for you guys. And we're happy to take in any questions. I think we just put that for the panel discussion.
Yes.
That's it for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We got to know about so many restrictions that are there in India regarding using blockchain, particularly crypto side of things. That's what the Indian government is concerned and stopping it. That's even been a philosophy with the BSC blockchain, where we focus rather on the utility of blockchain and using the blockchain without the crypto element at all, as far as we can, just using it as a ledger. And there are multiple properties of the blockchain that I would like to delineate that are very required. A lot of requirement is there for it to be traceable, to have KYC and AML, as he was mentioning. With the wallets, all wallets must be doing that. When you onboard your users, when you're building a startup, and it should have identity with privacy, which is the concern of Web3 community, because the entire model is that we are owning our own data and controlling our data and earning from our data and not being data not being used by other entities and transacted with without our permissions. So privacy has to be maintained, but that does not mean it has to be anonymous. Anonymity is a different concept than privacy. Anonymity is to have no identity at all. So with legal aspect, there is the rule that you need to have identity, and for that there is KYC that you need to do and protect all the data with privacy. What we do is the data is maintained by the wallet providers relevant to the transaction. The people who are relevant to the transaction and the legal authorities can always get the information from the wallet providers, wallet service providers, and who are maintaining the data of which user has what addresses and whatnot. But it's not there on the public ledger for everyone to see that okay, this is the transaction, this is the data. So that's how we maintain that. Then when you do international transactions, there's travel rule that you have to follow because information needs to be transmitted from one country, the transaction, and the other country. When the transmission of the currency is happening, you have to follow the travel rule and give data about what exactly the transaction was about. That's the travel rule. That's a specification that is followed even by wallets in the BSC ecosystem to follow the travel rule, so that we are most compliant and as much as we can. Traceability is so important, but multiple blockchains we see are actually trying their best to remove traceability, reverse direction, because the entire philosophy, there's a philosophical divide between the community. Is that one community wants to be anti-law or anti-regulation and traceability should not be there at all and avoid it as much as possible. In doing that, what you do is become illegal and make sure you become illegal and out of the market by the government. So our approach is rather to comply with regulations as much as we can and take that strategy and follow as many regulations as we can, because we are not doing anything wrong. It's just a ledger. In fact, it's more transparent and more auditable than any other institution right now. So there are more properties that make our blockchain, the BSC blockchain, which our community uses, the most legally compliant blockchain that we can use to build our products, especially in India. The scalability problem, as I mentioned before, has been addressed. The transaction fee issue that is concerned with many blockchains, in fact, Polygon came up with their own blockchain just to solve the transaction fee issue with Ethereum. Smart contracts ability is needed by blockchains, that is there. We need instant transactions. There should not be waiting time of multiple blocks or multiple 10-minute blocks to be waiting for a transaction for finance. We have instant transactions for it. On the legal side of things, we have to be regulatory compliant as much as we can. It has to be traceable. It has to even have fiat acceptance. So this is the thing. You can pay for transaction fees using rupees. You can use the transactions on the ledger using rupees. You can do everything. You can run an entire business using rupees while using the blockchain. That's the model. That's the strategy that why startups should be doing in India who want to work with blockchain and do Web3 products. What you do is you utilize the ledger only as a ledger using rupees as much as you can. And don't need even the miners in the Bitcoin ecosystem. They accept fiat payments for putting your transactions in the block. So it's a business. It's a normal business and it follows normal regulations, and it even gives us an edge over all the other blockchains and other startups which do not work with this, because the restrictions that are placed on crypto, as he was mentioning, is so much that you can't operate at all. You cannot operate. But when you follow this strategy, you are able to operate and do every single thing. Why should you be handicapped? Everything Paytm can do, you can do. Because you are not using anything else. It's only a backend technology, which is a ledger. Instead of using a private database, using a ledger. That's all you do. And you're gaining all the advantages that comes with the blockchain by doing that. This blockchain is what my company itself I built, TimeChain Labs, focuses on and builds upon. We offer solutions using this blockchain technology of Bitcoin SV. And we offer consulting for different startups and enterprises to be developing applications in the legally compliant way using the SV blockchain, as well as offer support for incubation for different startups who are willing or wanting to start in this space and work in this space in the best possible way in India. We have different products and incubatees. Rise the founder is here, who has been working with us. Bit2P, Neutron. Neutron is our own flagship wallet. I'll tell you about how you can use Neutron to build your solution, your blockchain startup. And following all the regulations of India and using rupees itself, you can use the blockchain. That's the key. With that, you will be able to create a startup and launch your product. We have different partners and clients all across the world. What Neutron is, it does micropayment solutions and usage of blockchain and smart contracting using blockchain with rupees itself. So with rupees, you are able to have your users on board onto the platform just like they load up rupees in their Paytm wallet. You can load up rupees in your Neutron wallet for your users, and then they can do smart contracts using rupees, they can do micropayments using rupees, they can do every single property of blockchain that is valuable using rupees.
Is it something like on meta?
Yeah.
Is it something like on meta?
On meta is only on ramp and off ramp. So our Bit2P solution is like on meta, but not Neutron. Neutron is a full-fledged wallet by itself, not just an on ramp off ramp solution. It's a wallet which holds your rupees like a Paytm or MetaMask, more like MetaMask, but with rupees instead of crypto. You can sign in your users with Neutron everywhere. Our incubation program, as we showed, multiple products that have come out of the first program, and the next program begins in May, and we're inviting multiple applications. If you're interested in really joining us and getting the support, we support even with our partners like Universal Legal and 03. We are able to then offer even legal compliance, everything that you need to make sure that your startup is running well and in compliant with the Indian regulations, as well as our strategy itself is to follow that.
Why so late?
Yeah.
Why so late? May, I mean, like 5 months ago, Web3 बदल रहा था.
Yes, but we are so confident that we are not on short term. We're not playing any short term games, so we're playing really long term games. So we're not going to be affected that much in such a short time. But yes, so late because right now our first cohort is still running. If we finish only, and also because many students who want to start up, their vacations are in May. And April begins the new year.
So you only looking at student startups then?
No, so that they are also involved much. They can get involved. So that we don't do that. Blockchain training program is there. If you want to learn more, there is a course that I would recommend. BSc Academy course is there, where it teaches the blockchain theory course. You get certified. It's a pre-certification course, and we even hire people who are and give internships to people who are certified for this. There are 3 different courses: theory, development, and infrastructure, depending on how much deep you want to go. And we are conducting a hackathon in January. This January itself, if you are willing to learn more, you can use our wallet, develop a solution, and win the hackathon. And we're even offering internships as a prize to the hackathon. Coming to the launch of Bharat Legal Tech Forum that will be coming up. It is an initiative by us that wants to promote the legal tech industry in India. Because legal tech in India is not that developed as of yet. US has quite a bit going on, but we really want to promote the legal tech industry, particularly using blockchain technology. What is happening is you're having digital signatures. Digital signatures, you can sign contracts, and you're doing smart contracting. This is all in legal tech domain. And you're having secure data, secure contracts, whatever valuable document is to be stored so that it's not tampered with. That's the use case of blockchain, so that there's no tampering on the document. It's timestamp. That's also a legal property. It's very beneficial for important documents. What are the important documents? They're your contracts, important contracts. So legal tech is an industry really we want to explore. We are having a community of lawyers join us, and we have working groups, work on different papers, white
I don't
papers.
think this link is working.
We'll send an email anyway. We'll send an email with you for you to get a link. To submit your application if you have interest to join as a tech entrepreneur to develop, or even just to learn about legal tech, or as a lawyer to join into the forums, working groups, work on the papers, work on the cutting edge of tech and law working together. Coming to the presentation by Anuradha on the intellectual property aspects of blockchain and Web3. Welcome.
Hi. Tech and IP lawyer and founder of 023 Collective. We're a legal and business consultancy for Web3, emerging technologies, and media and entertainment. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Was my voice too soft? Okay. So I'm not going to get into an explanation of Web3. Obviously, I think the crowd is far too advanced for that. I'll jump straight into it. In October 2022, India recorded 450 startups in the Web3 space, and our growth in the last 2 years has been exponential. India is for Web3 startups what Silicon Valley was for .com startups during the .com boom. But we all know how that ended. It resulted in one of the biggest crashes of the global economy in 10 years. An optimist would say there's a lot we could learn from that to avoid these mistakes in the future. Airbnb went through many issues because it was perceived to disrupt, it did disrupt the real estate sector, but their very wise lawyers argued that it was an internet company. Uber was perceived to be a transportation company, but their lawyers argued that it was an internet company. Amazon is not a grocery store or a bookstore, according to its lawyers, it's an internet company. Google is still in the soup because of allegedly abusing dominance, but that's fine. We'll see how that works out. All these companies have been through a long struggle. Legacy businesses, policymakers, regulators, and courts have always questioned the business models of these companies, but look at where they are now, they're game changers. Now, everyone in this room, I'm sure you're all set to lead India's tech aid, and that's also the reason why I set up 023 Collective, because I believe in the Web3 revolution in India. But business models will be questioned again. Laws and regulations will change. The economy will be disrupted. It's all going to come in a full circle. That's what deja vu is. But that's just the highlight victory. The lawyer in me has to tell you that behind the scenes what happens is... behind the scenes it involves archaic legal strategies, IP theft, having contracts that are not built for Web3 and losing investors because of poor legal compliance. When it comes to building a Web3 startup and a blockchain startup in India, it's obviously no easy task because we do not have laws and regulations to govern these at the moment. It's tempting to assume that a whole new set of regulations need to be formulated for Web3, but that's not the case. You can use existing laws and analyze them and apply them creatively. So it's important for founders to really stay at the top of their games and obviously work out a legal strategy and structure for their startups to get to the goal. Which brings me to my key point. How can IP rights be structured when you're building a Web3 startup, and consequently, how does ownership of these rights work? Intellectual property is one of the most important assets of blockchain and Web3 companies. It helps boost the valuation of your company. When IP is registered, it provides a sense of assurance to investors, but that's not the only reason to register. India at the moment does not have any intellectual property regime for blockchain and Web3 specific businesses. But there are some steps that can be taken to protect and structure IP for your company. Intellectual property rights are rights that exist in a work from the time of creation. Simply put, IP rights say that if you create original content, you have rights over that content and you decide how that content is used and who gets to use it, right? In IP, there's protection that is traditional. You can register your trademarks, your copyright, your designs, your software, etc. But when it comes to Web3, you need to think outside the box. Let's take the example of trademarks. Your trademark increases your brand value and registration gives you legal protection. The quality of a good trademark is one that is distinct from the goods and services that it's trying to protect. What this means is that your trademark should not be indicative of what your goods and services are. For example, you cannot have an image or a logo of a crypto exchange where the trademark is an image of a cryptocurrency because it's directly indicative of what you're trying to do. Apple's logo is very good. It's a logo of an apple. You don't understand what the company is doing at all. Registering your trademark allows you to take action under Indian trademark law, whether it's a logo or a design or a slogan or the name of your company. Before applying for trademark registration, your lawyer will identify the class which relates to your goods and services. India follows the NIST classification, which is an international system of classifying goods and services, under 45 classes. 34 of those are for goods and the remaining are for services. But if your business is going to be selling virtual branded goods, in the metaverse, for example, the classes in which your trademark applications need to be mapped out a little bit differently. If you take the example of a traditional clothing company, you would file for registration in class 25, which relates to clothing, headgear, footwear for human beings. But if you're making digital clothing, that's technically a software, so you would have to file for registration in class 9. Which relates to computer programs and software, and perhaps even class 41 for entertainment services. Even if you do not plan on selling your goods on the metaverse, it's important to expand your trademark strategy and file for registration in classes that cover virtual goods and services. Another trademark strategy that can be used is to actually use the blockchain to demonstrate proof of use for trademarks. The trademark registration process in India and in almost every jurisdiction that I have had experience with is very long and very tedious. Objections are mostly always received from the registrar's level as well as from third parties who may have identical or similar trademarks. The applicant will respond and follow a specific procedure which involves providing evidence. So for instance, if I apply for registration of 023 as a word mark, I may receive opposition from another company whose trademark is called 321 because it's similar to mine. Now if I can demonstrate that I've been using my trademark for longer than they have been using theirs and that I've spent money on a marketing budget, I have a strong case to get my mark registered. So if I use the blockchain for evidencing use of 023, I could use a smart contract on a blockchain which would provide evidence with the help of a timestamp. The longer I've used my trademark, the stronger my case is, and by recording its first use and perhaps even subsequent uses, I've done away with the burden of providing and digging up invoices or archived paper records. Anyway, I can go on about how the blockchain can benefit legal processes, but I think that's a conversation for another day. Coming to copyright and NFT. When you mint an NFT or you permit a marketplace to mint one on your behalf, any transfer of that NFT will usually mean transfer of ownership of the NFT, but the rights in the underlying asset do not get transferred. What this means is that just by virtue of buying, for example, an NFT of a painting, it does not mean that you actually own the painting, you don't own the copyright in the painting, you just own the NFT. It does not automatically become yours. By purchasing an NFT, you will not automatically have the right to print the image of the painting on a t-shirt and sell that t-shirt for commercial benefit. That right can be given away, but it has to be given away contractually. The first rule of thumb when minting an NFT is to ensure that the original work, the underlying work is unique and that it belongs to you. If the work is not yours, if it's part of a collaborative work or if it's commissioned work or if you've licensed it away, there are a couple of things that you can do. With collaborative work, you can get permission from the other artist who has collaborated. If you have commissioned someone to create work for you, you need to have a contract in place that says that the IP rights in the work are owned by you. If the work is a subject of a license agreement, for example, if you want to mint an NFT of a song, but that song has obviously been written by a songwriter and a music composer, it's likely they've entered into a contract with the studio for distribution. You need to check that contract to see if the original creators have the right to give you the right to mint NFTs of that. So there are of course legal concerns when it comes to NFTs, and it's likely that NFTs themselves may not enjoy copyright protection because an NFT is merely represents tokenized data on the blockchain. It is not intellectual property. But the asset attached to it is intellectual property, and that is subject to IP laws. Coming to IP ownership in the blockchain. At the base level, the blockchain network is made up of back-end blockchain software and the user-facing app. The blockchain software is pre-existing software that the developer uses for many clients. The user-facing app is used by a participant to record transactions on the blockchain and is also software that is developed and tailored for a particular use. The ownership of IP in the user-facing app is ambiguous and leaves you wondering whether it would be owned by the blockchain developer or by the intermediary of the user-facing app. One way to approach this is to have the blockchain developer own the IP and license the IP to the intermediary. This deals with issues of the pre-existing IP that is being used. Coming to working Web3 clauses into your IP agreements. Even if you are not doing anything in the blockchain and Web3 space yet, it's important to work those strategies into your contracts. It's no secret that Web3 is revolutionizing the film industry. You can mint an element of a film as an NFT, you can mint the film as a whole as an NFT. It becomes an additional revenue stream. But to do this, you have to first ascertain whether you have the rights to do this. For instance, if you have produced a film for distribution on an OTT marketplace, it's likely that you've entered into a distribution agreement with that marketplace. So you would then need to check this distribution agreement to ensure that you have the rights to distribute the NFT on the NFT marketplace because it is a form of distribution. Ideally, this should be put in by a lawyer at the time of drafting the distribution agreement. Accordingly, when you're creating your IP strategy, and this applies to Web3 companies and content creators, it's important to discuss with your lawyer how your IP rights can be secured for Web3. And if you have a startup in the blockchain and Web3 space, you must be mindful of any IP infringement that you're committing without knowing it. As startups, it's also important to consolidate IP. What this means is that when you are a startup, you'll obviously have co-founders. You need to have an agreement between the co-founders to ensure that any IP that the co-founder creates or contributes to is owned by the company and not by that founder. You also need to have agreements in place with your vendors, consultants, employees, etc. to ensure that you own any IP that they create. But there are a lot of challenges when it comes to enforcement of rights, including IP rights, and that main challenge is the legal concept of ownership. Now, IP is usually owned by an entity, which makes it centralized from a legal point of view. A DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, is a good use of blockchain technology. In a DAO, there is no board of directors. Instead, decisions are made by members who vote basis tokens that are issued to them that carry voting rights. Although some DAOs have been created to own physical property, it doesn't work the same way with intellectual property and DAOs. Under Indian copyright law, the author of a work is the original and first owner of that work. So for example, if I write a book, I am the author of the book. If I produce a cinematograph film, I am the author of that cinematograph film. Now a DAO that has been created for the purpose of producing movies may purchase a script from the first owner of copyright, that's from a script writer, with the intention of producing a film. The producer of the cinematograph film, like I said, is the first owner of copyright. So basically, if a DAO produces a film, it should ideally be the owner of the copyright in the film. But DAOs are not recognized in India as legal entities, and India is silent on the manner of treatment of DAOs. In the absence of having any legal status, any IP that may be owned by a DAO is challenging when it comes to infringement. Because how would a DAO even make a claim to challenge someone from misusing technology or from misusing IP that does not really belong to them, because in the eyes of Indian laws, they don't exist. Now, coming to copyright infringement on the blockchain. The blockchain is, as we all know, distributed ledger technology. Now, if I use the blockchain to post a link to an unreleased film, to which I obviously don't own the copyright, that may be considered to be a communication of the work to public, which is an exclusive right for copyright holders. I'm sure you're all familiar with Pirate Bay. It's a peer-to-peer platform for pirated content. I hope none of you have used it. I see some people nodding over there. Okay, so in the case of Pirate Bay, what happened was that it was not the users who uploaded the content on Pirate Bay that were held liable. It was Pirate Bay itself for providing the search engine to access that content and for providing the platform. So if protected work is uploaded onto the blockchain, then who's responsible? I don't have an answer to that. Now let me try to explain IP infringement in the context of artificial intelligence. Before everyone dozes off, when it comes to AI, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Perhaps robots, Alexa ordering your groceries, bobbleheads of Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, the Jetsons. Okay, scratch that. I know this is a room full of some of the brightest minds in blockchain, and while I am a lawyer, I used to be a filmmaker before this. So I got my first taste of artificial intelligence when I watched Steven Spielberg's film AI, Artificial Intelligence. I don't know how many of you would have watched that movie. But basically the film is about an android who is a little boy that's programmed with the ability to love. The film left the audience wondering whether robots can love, and also raised the old age question proposed by Alan Turing, who was a scientist in the 1950s, which is, can machines think? It seems like now they can respond too. I'm sure you're all familiar with ChatGPT. Okay, if someone isn't, it's splashed across every news network in the last couple of weeks. ChatGPT may not have the intention to plagiarize, but what it does is it scours the internet and produces its answers to you. So it's very sophisticated, but the content it generates is by a machine using pre-existing data, and therefore it cannot be subject to copyright protection. A script written by ChatGPT, although not intended to, may end up containing elements of a script written by someone else, or containing elements of various scripts written by various different people. So if ChatGPT plagiarizes your novel to write a screenplay, against whom will you file a suit for copyright infringement? AI does not enjoy the legal status of person in India. The essence of personhood lies in the right to own property and the capacity to sue and be sued. Globally too, the legal personality of AI falls under the grey area, and uniform consensus is absolutely absent. Without having laws to hold AI responsible, it's difficult to ascertain who would take responsibility for any damaging actions of AI, and in the absence of recognition of personhood in India and maybe other countries too, the interpretation of liability is unsettling. So even if IP is not the main focus of what your business is trying to do, you need to consider the potential legal and IP implications that may arise from the manner in which your product or service is delivered, like what's happening with ChatGPT. So while the position on the legality of Web3, blockchain and elements of blockchain such as decentralized finance, NFTs in most jurisdictions remains in the grey zone, the innovation in Web3 continues to grow in leaps and bounds, and our race towards decentralization is in top gear. But unregulated technology is sure to pose a risk to human existence. Anything that has any impact on human existence, whether it's drugs, medicine, aeroplanes, cars, etc. have been regulated. Effective ways to regulate Web3, clarification of questions pertaining to ownership, protection and enforcement of rights of law, jurisdiction, and effective courses of action to resolve disputes remain at large. The best way for India to ride this wave of digital transformation is to quickly formulate and adopt enterprising and innovative regulations. And after all, the .com boom will give us Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Thank you.
What kind of requests do you get?
The kind of requests we're getting from Web3 are actually very few of them actually get into this business model as of right now. But whatever we get is to set up the entities and IP and IP protection, what Anuradha mentioned in her presentation. And how do we protect how do we do blockchain deep technology in a compliant way? And as I explained earlier, the blockchain as a thing is not regulated in the country as of right now, and especially the areas of crypto. So all the crypto exchanges and all which are there, and the blockchain entities are there, even though technically it's legally, since it's not illegal to do it, it's not regulated. So for us to actually advise on how to set up it on a regular platform is very difficult, as long as it's not doing anything illegal or not going anti any of the existing laws.
It should not be anti any of the existing laws, otherwise it's great.
Yeah.
It's all in great. You can't be sure.
You can't be sure, so that's what we are saying, don't do this. We normally other industries we say do X, Y, Z. Or shall we say don't do ABC.
Yeah.
So that's the way we actually advising clients on this kind of platforms, on how to go about to handle the so-called potential risk management or business sources.
In general, what I was seeing was past years, there was a lot of demand for, let's say, creating ICOs, and still many people want to issue their tokens. Most of these tokens are securities. What do you do when you get such kind of request, like they want to issue a security? Would you recommend them not to try that in India at all, or not to do that ever?
What we are telling the people is not to try them in India, move to Dubai and Singapore, where it's recognized and regulated. So at least you have some form of regulation, some form of regulation by one international government or some independent state. And then that commodity which you do an ICO and whatever there, I can subscribe to it in India. Because in India can invest, as an investor, put $200,000 or $300,000, forget the number, in business ventures per year outside the country, legally. So the idea is, if you want to attract Indian investors and you want to do business in India, register all this in Dubai or Singapore or any other country where you are comfortable with, depending on what kind of business and stuff you're doing, and then get that part of India, get the Indian investors or subscribe to it. $200,000 per person means for a family of four about $800,000, which is a huge amount of money you can look at a family investing. So our strategy is, since India is not regulated and really can't predict whether they'll ban it tomorrow, what kind of decision could come out tomorrow, to go to Dubai or Singapore or US or the European countries where it's recognized, follow those protocols and get it.
So Indian users can still be the users of the app, or the investment, they can still invest. You can address the Indian market, while still registering the company.
While registering the company in a country where it's recognized, where blockchain and things regulated and recognized.
Coming to you, Anuradha, you mentioned about digital rights tokenization, and do you consult even people regarding NFTs, and what kind of requests do you get? And you see the market right now with NFTs is they're not backed by actual rights, and do you tell them and do they follow your advice, or do they still, what's happening in the market there?
So the first question that clients have when they come to us is what we're doing. And if it is legal, then what is the right jurisdiction to set up in, and how do we set up in that jurisdiction? That's the first question they ask, even before coming to the IP. Obviously, we advise them on a jurisdiction structure. So we do jurisdiction summary reports where we look at the client's business model and identify the top 3 jurisdictions for them depending on what they're trying to do. Anyone who's heavily into the crypto space is not setting up in India, nor are we advising them. The UAE, of course, is a good jurisdiction, but Singapore is better from an institutional investment point of view. We also have Portugal, the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, Estonia. There's multiple jurisdictions, but again, it depends on what you're trying to do, what your budget is, because it's expensive to set up abroad. You have to pay our fees, then you have to pay the statutory costs that is different in every country depending on what you're trying to do. And you also have to pay the local lawyer in that country that we appoint to get the basic licenses and registrations in place. Now coming to the IP bit, yeah, there are people in India who are getting into the NFT space quite heavily, in fact, especially in the film industry actually. I've been working with producers who are looking to NFTize their films or elements of their films and sell them on NFT marketplaces. Most of these marketplaces are registered in Singapore. But that doesn't stop you from giving them the license to sell NFTs. Another issue that does come up, which I've been seeing in fact with gaming companies, especially in the Web3 space, working Web3 gaming or anything that has virtual currencies, is that they are going and setting up abroad, but India released the draft gaming regulations last week. I'm not going to comment on those, but what is happening is that these companies that are going and setting up abroad, they are offering Indians the opportunity to bet, and games of chance are prohibited in India when you're playing the states, right? The government cannot do anything to an entity that's set up abroad because I cannot have jurisdiction over someone in another country. But what I can do is block access to the website in India. So ultimately the company does end up losing. I think the new gaming regulations will address this as well. But yeah, there's a lot of activity happening in this space. We do IP structuring. We don't work with patents, but we help structure a company's IP. We work with them on transactions.
NFTs and gaming assets.
Yes.
The new draft regulations of gaming sound very interesting. Do they allow investing into staking or anything, or do they prohibit? Is that what they're doing?
They are trying to prohibit it.
They're trying to prohibit everything. So that's why it is, and therefore, in fact, we got a client recently who wanted to do a gaming platform backed by a couple of casino players, betting on various sporting activities in India. So in fact, we are exploring moving that business out to a third jurisdiction and then bringing that app or the website, how we want to do
But
it.
doesn't Dream 11 and stuff, betting speculation apps like that also get affected?
That's not betting.
That's not betting, that's fantasy game. You are creating a team and it's a skill set. Therefore, if you look at it,
Skill set.
I mean, okay, let me answer that question. It's very difficult to define what is a skill set and what is a gaming and what is a game of chance. On one hand, you are allowing horse racing in the heart of Bombay and heart of Pune and various other cities and saying that's a game of skill and therefore betting can be allowed. On the other hand, you are not allowing betting or game of skills on, let's say, cricket match or a soccer match. So, frankly, if you ask us to explain one and explain, not be able to explain the other, is going to be a very difficult proposition to make. Supreme Court and its judges have said horse is a game of skill, therefore we are allowing betting in that or thing. But then my replica point is, why isn't a game of cricket or game of soccer, isn't that a game of skill? I mean, it's a big dichotomy there. Again, if you're asking the right answer, obviously there's no right answer to that. Okay. So again, I mean, how do you take that thing forward? A dream fantasy Dream 11 kind of thing. What they're doing is, you are actually, technically it's a game of skill. For the simple reason you are allowing people to make their own team, and depending on how they perform in that particular match or a series of match, you are getting score out of it. And then you are getting a reward or cash incentive around that. So again, I really don't know, you're betting on somebody else's skill or is it your own skill, I don't know.
But most of the games would qualify as a skill-based game unless they have like dice throwing and probability there. Unless that aspect is not there, it's a game of skill.
How would you explain poker, Bazi and other games?
There's still probabilities there.
How would you explain poker, Bazi and other poker game? Or Rummy Circle and all exist in this country then?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, those are pure game of chance. I mean,
Yeah, game of chance cannot qualify.
okay, is poker a game skill set or a game of chance? Let's just say we're out there, about 50 odd people.
It's a game of skill.
Skill.
So why isn't Rummy a game of skill?
Skill and chance, both.
So point is, I would look at a different perspective, another person look at a different perspective. And that dichotomy will exist in every game or every betting field. Okay. And we as lawyers, I cannot debate what is right or what is wrong. We are here to be paid and our profession is to interpret the law in the client's favor. Bottom line. If you ask me to do something else, it's difficult. Okay.
It seems sports becomes game of skill. They can qualify as esports or fantasy sports. They're always becoming skill games, skill based, and just in general game. It cannot justify itself as esports or some kind of a skill based game. It is not able to be used. Okay, coming to what you were mentioning about international transfers, it cannot be done with cryptocurrencies at all. Would you think these exchanges are still operating somehow in India? How does that work out? And is there no future at all of these exchanges in India?
Difficult question to answer. Whether how are they operating is still, I think it's a private exchange. I think there has been a move to ban these exchanges, frankly speaking. How successful the government would be is a different question. Because what I can do into private as a barter, the government can't do that because I'm going to ask for the Indian Contract Act. I've not set up a physical exchange per se, it's a virtual exchange. So it's not like the Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange where I can go to a building and issue contract notes and blah blah blah. It's virtual, so it could be most of the exchanges, as far as I know, are set up offshore with a virtual dealing room and you deal within India. As far as I know, the CoinEx is based in Singapore or something, if I'm not wrong. Quite a lot of them are based in Singapore or Dubai or other countries. And having India as a major Indian playing in that. Legally, as I mentioned recently, an individual can invest $200,000 per year outside the country. So over a period of time, that becomes a huge money.
Yes.
So once you invested the money, it doesn't mean that you have to get that money back in. So I can do. So for example, it's every financial year. So suppose I want to invest a huge chunk of money, I can invest some money on March 25th, 2022 and balance 200,000 on April 3rd, 2022 in a span of less than 2 weeks, but technically are 2 distinct financial years. Correct? It will stop you from investing till 2023 April, but if I've done that, why not?
Okay. So, using the allowance that Indians have for around 250k, that's a big amount. We can still invest in outside jurisdiction. But in one slide of yours, you did mention that foreign currency, transactions with some foreign goods, cannot be done by what? Can you just explain more about what that is?
Thing is, under FEMA, there's a limit of money which you can take out of the country. As I said, about $200,000 to $50,000 for investment purpose and for spending purpose. There's a limit of $25,000, $50,000 you can take out for tourism and except for film production where the budgets go ahead because of whatever. So if you are doing something, suppose you issue a token, which is worth, let's say $100,000, and you transfer that token beyond the limit. So then overseen violation of FEMA. Correct? The issue which we're trying to address is, the value of that token, if it's non-asset backed, is arbitrary.
Yeah.
How would you value a computer algorithm issued token? Or how do you, let's say, value a painting? Right? I mean, today paintings are worth crores if it's an MF signature. And if that signature is not there, I may not pay more than $1,000 for it. Correct? Or even the watch we're wearing, if it's a one branded watch, you could probably pay crores for it. If it's an unbranded watch or an HMT watch, I'll not pay 5,000 rupees for it.
Yeah.
Correct? So that valuation, how would you define to what the proper value of a token is if it's not asset backed?
It's more speculation.
It is speculative and arbitrary. Correct? So therefore, FAMA and therefore the government of India, rightly or wrongly, I'm not getting the debate of whether they're right or wrong, wants to prevent that. Because it can lead to money laundering, it can lead to cash transfers outside the country without the RBI knowledge and without any regulation.
Yes.
Right? Or it looks very good on paper, DAO, decentralized economy, free movement of things, boss. In reality, that's how your terrorism goes on, your black money gets generated, your cash income gets generated. How do you regulate all that? And then if another Kasab incident happens in the city, the first person to blame is the government of India. I mean,
You mentioned DAO, and this has been the biggest use case kind of blockchain technology, smart contracts for people to make DAOs, communities which can be governed by a contract with no entity otherwise, just a contract. What is your take on setting up a DAO, how it can be set up? And you did mention about partnerships. Just briefly address, if you do not legally register a DAO, how does that really work?
Indian law does not recognize DAO as a thing. So the question of registering it or forming a DAO in the Indian civil does not, for me as a lawyer, does not exist, to be very honest.
Yeah.
I think it's only Wyoming which allows it.
Yes, Wyoming is
That's the only one that
state that recognizes.
So that's what I'm saying. For me to advise on DAO formation in India,
Yeah.
I'm the wrong person to ask. Because Indian law does not recognize it, there is no bearing on it. So for me, I mean, that's why in my presentation, the talk which I gave, I did not touch on the topic of DAO. Even though you guys had kept asking to speak on DAO. I mean, how would you expect a DAO to speak on something which is not recognized, not legal in a country like ours?
There are many people who launch DAOs. Wouldn't you say it qualifies as unlimited partnership if it's not
It is
backed by
not.
some entity?
It is not a legal entity in India. Okay. Let's face it. Whatever formation, connotation may use, or whatever it may have inklings to a partnership entity or a proprietary concern, it is not a recognized entity or a business venture in India. Period. Okay.
But can we do the same DAO features with the company structures like the LLP or the private limited? It's just that we just bring the advantages of DAO and wrap with the legal.
Okay.
Can
Let
we
me
do
take
that?
that to the next level. That means you're trying to create smart contracts.
Yep.
Entity that governs DAO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, agree.
No, but then what's the whole point? Because DAO is a decentralized structure. How can you bring decentralized structure onto a centralized structure?
Okay.
No, the thing is, you have a DAO, right? And DAO is like, you can say, it's like operated by the consensus, right?
Yeah.
Consensus of
So there are
everybody.
multiple people.
However
Yeah.
however you respond. But then the consensus also allows a particular entity to manage on behalf of them.
So then
just
that's
like a
what I'm saying.
democracy.
When you are, in spirit, you are not following the DAO structure.
However, but whenever you sign up for a DAO or financial, then you become part of it as well. I mean, it's like a democracy, just like.
Why? I don't know. See, LLP, you have only a few stakeholders who are taking a decision. A DAO, the whole purpose of DAO was a democratic decision making.
Absolutely.
So how can you create a DAO within an LLP? You can't. You have to decide either one of them.
Let's see the primary four business structures which I discussed in the thing, which are recognized in India. And if you remember the features, let's say a company is managed and controlled and all the decisions are taken by the board of directors.
Yes.
Correct.
Does DAO fit into that? Yes or no?
No.
In an LLP, all the decisions are taken by the designated partners.
Yeah.
The partners are designated to take the decision, including the board of directors thing. Does DAO fall into that?
No.
In a partnership, the partners decide how the decision have to be taken because they have unlimited liability. Does DAO fit into that? No. Now, source of proprietor concern is a single person who owns the property, so DAO cannot be there as sole proprietor.
Apurva, interesting observation. But in an LLP, for example, there is no limitation on number of limited partners. Or maybe just 200.
Neither in a private company.
So what he's saying, if we can give the DAO token, governance tokens to all those 200 members,
Wait.
actually can be a DAO.
Getting
Yes,
the
that's
token, getting the token or the partners, the token is not the issue. In an LLP, the decision is made by whom?
So obviously it's for managing partner. No?
The designated partners.
Huh.
In a DAO structure, is by voting and consent.
Everyone.
No, I understand, but just for the argument's sake, I'm saying if a LLP has, let's say, even if it has 50 designated partners, because there's no limit. So,
Wait.
huh.
It's
Question.
more like a private dog.
One
Kind
second.
of
Let me answer the question. When you are talking about designated partners or board of directors in a private company or a designated partner
LLP,
in an LLP, question of having a board or a designated partner is to make the decision making efficient and quick.
right?
Okay, so you may have 5,000 partners in an LLP
Right,
or probably 10,000 shareholders in a private company,
right.
but the designated partners and the
Huh.
board of directors will always be limited.
Huh.
Okay, not to number which you talk. Normal thing is, and we can double check that, ranges between 2 to 5 or 7 people.
No, I understand. So practically that is what is happening. Obviously because that's the disadvantage of a DAO. That with so much decentralization, the decision making goes for a toss. But I'm saying, if just for argumentative sake, because technically if there is no limit on the designated partners in LLP,
There is no limit on the partners.
Acha, so there's a
You
limit
can
on
make a
designated
legal
partners.
wrapper basically, which you can tokenize the rights of everyone who is holding the token.
See.
Voting rights are on the.
Okay, now let me just take off from what you're saying. Sorry to stop you. The various kinds of tokens which can be issued, and let me give you example of something. Some tokens are what are called utility tokens. Some are voting tokens, some are participating tokens. So depending on the kind of token you're issuing to somebody, you will have that corresponding right in that an entity, asset or whatever for which you're issuing the token. Correct? So then we'll have to design a token
Yeah.
which will probably suit an LLP or a company formation and give the price of that token then will obviously be different.
Yeah.
Okay. So as of right now it's difficult to discuss that unless you are doing a case study or in what context are you going to
Correct.
place that.
Correct.
Because if you talk about utility tokens, it will be on
So I understand. So obviously if it's a DAO, then we are only talking about governance tokens because it's all about decision making, it's not about retail.
Voting rights basically.
Huh,
voting as a governance token,
Yeah.
then that will cause a premium. Then you also have to decide how many of such tokens can you issue per
Yeah,
entity.
correct. So all
So if
those
you have
factors.
already decided a number of tokens, governance tokens issued, is coming back to limited number of people making decisions.
Yeah, I understand.
Then,
I get it. No,
so then
obviously,
the purpose of DAO as a, having 100 people decide, it loses purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you're
So
asking,
there will always be a limitation, you're right.
there's always be a limitation, yeah? Whether you follow the DAO or the normal procedure. Because you're going to issue limited governance tokens.
I think even a lot of DAOs are also realizing this flaw in the model because a lot of DAOs are also having some kind of a centralized control nowadays.
Yes, yes, it's natural to happen.
Because otherwise, it would be
Okay.
chaos.
Yes.
Let me just, summarize this. I don't know how many of you people have read this book called Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Okay.
Okay. It was on democracy.
Yeah.
It started off with everybody revolting and saying,
Some rights.
okay, all people, all animals are equal.
Yeah.
Later on, when it came to governance and all animals are equal, but some are more equal. Okay. So ultimately, what we guys are trying to answer, and you guys are answering yourself, in DAO structure, all are equal, but some are more equal.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then we are back to square number one. Or what we talk about LP or private company or what is structure talking about?
Yeah.
I think DAO is just a kind of an old wine in a new bottle. Essentially, the earlier what used to be crowdfunding and all those things has moved to a DAO definition now, technically speaking.
Definitely. So as you rightly said, we can keep debating around it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it will come back to a few people having control
Yeah,
and
it has to.
issues.
Yeah.
So I think that debate itself is a non-starter for me.
Do you think people who manage, let's say there are entities, let's say Politburo, let's call it a Politburo that is managing that DAO, okay? Can they, by virtue of smart contract, can they, at the end of the day, law asks who's to blame? Something has happened, now tell us who's to blame. The point is that. So can they blame it on the network itself? Because at the end of the day, it's a smart, it ran through smart.
Let me ask you another question before I answer that question. Some companies, I won't take the name of the companies, and we all know what I'm speaking about, have started the concept of driverless cars. If an accident happens with that car, who should be blamed?
That's a
That's the
You can't blame
creator
AI.
of the.
You can't blame
You
it.
can't blame a non-entity, yeah.
You can't blame it.
AI doesn't have agency, so someone else.
Okay. Today, let's take it to another level. If a DAO affects your life personally in some way or other, who are you going to blame? Let's not talking there. I'm giving you concrete examples. Or where are you going to get compensation from? Which entity?
The issuer of the token.
Okay. Today, to some extent, the existing laws have tried to answer that. I'll give you an example. In Companies Act, take for example, if the company creates an offense, I can't put the company behind the bars, right, for a criminal offense. The Companies Act mandates that you have a designated director who is responsible for XYZ offenses of the company. So that person is held responsible individually. Okay. So for every DAO, sooner or later, it will be regulated by this country. Maybe 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 10 years online. But then for every DAO created, and I can say that very much with confidence, you would have to appoint 2 or 3 individuals who would be the representative DAO, who will be held liable for any misdemeanor of that entity DAO in whatever form or the other. Because if you are having a corresponding gain, you also have to have a corresponding loss.
Apurva, I have one question. I'm going back to basics. Your conversation covered that since the current regulation regime, so we cannot set up companies. There's something do's and don'ts, and there are some countries like Dubai, Singapore, we can set up company. The company can start offering services back in India. Tomorrow something goes wrong, right? And for example, there's an Indian guy only who set up just to have an arbitrage there, set up something in Dubai. And but the offering is coming back to India. How does it go with that? Tomorrow something goes wrong.
So something goes wrong against an Indian national for a company, let's say based in Dubai. I have to go to Dubai file a claim with the Dubai relevant cause and recover money because of that entity is registered in Dubai. Because that person jurisdiction is Dubai. So that is my only escape route. And or the other option is if you have an arbitration clause, international arbitration, you could use that as a mechanism for dispute resolution.
In a similar manner, so if talking about the arbitrage, so if I have a company in Dubai, registered company in Dubai, I'm selling USDT in South Africa, so I'm doing some arbitrage over there, I'm then selling it to Bahrain currency and then getting back to India. So how would that, am I gonna be legally, what do you say? Am I gonna go to jail if I do that, or it's okay? I mean, like in the end, I'm just making money out of the arbitrage. But where do I pay?
Depends on what kind of arbitrage trade you are doing. If it's allowed under the SCRA, the Security Contract Regulation Act, then it's permissible. If it's not allowed under SCRA, then you cannot do it. So depending on what kind of arbitrage and what commodity, what kind of fuel or whatever it is, we will be able to advise you further that. Because certain kind of arbitrage and certain kinds of things is not allowed. Okay. So depending on what kind of arbitrage and stuff you're talking about, we can discuss that offline.
And also the people who are getting paid in USDT or cryptocurrency in India now, since after the lockdown, a lot of people who are like getting their salary paid in USDT. So what they do is like they do P2P.
So let me answer that question. If it's an Indian company hiring an Indian national, they cannot pay in any other currency apart from Indian currency. Okay.
They do.
It's illegal.
Exactly.
Okay. So if it's a foreign entity hiring an Indian in the foreign jurisdiction, it can pay in the whatever that foreign currency jurisdiction it is. Okay. But if that foreign entity has a branch in India and hiring through that branch in India, again it has to pay through the Indian currency. Okay. So don't expect that if I, Apurva, am having my own firm, hires you, I can pay in USD, I have to pay in INR.
And I think again in that case the entire VDA and all those things will be applicable to you. So whenever you use that USDT or wherever that thing, you have to pay the tax on that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know, like, since it's in stable coin, even if it's stable coin, it's a cryptocurrency.
Even either.
Either way.
Any cryptocurrency is now on the VDA. Simple.
But the tax is there's a capital gain, right? So
So that's what I'm saying. So if he,
but he is receiving remuneration in USD.
even then, so whenever he will sell it, if he makes any profit out of it, even then, except the cost price of the USDT, he will have to pay the taxes accordingly. And the company will have to pay TDS. I don't know how the TDS will work out.
Yeah, because it's directly not coming to my bank account. So
Yeah, it's coming on your smart wallet.
Yeah, so like if I'm
But
doing P2P.
Someone will have to make a representation to the government, because tomorrow if government catches you, they will say that you have not paid the TDS or you will not have
that
paid
is
the
in
VDA.
violation
Huh.
of the FEMA and other regulations.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I will discuss when I was discussing FEMA. If you are using foreign currency from an Indian entity
Yeah.
after form whatever, it is in violation of FEMA.
Yeah, because you are not reporting into tax, so it will catch
Not
you.
reporting to RBI or getting permission to do that. So frankly, I would say keep away from it.
Okay, are we open to questions now?
Yeah, we are pretty much already.
We are already open.
We are already.
So,
We can't get more.
the biggest question which I came here for is, how are we able to understand the blockchain on real assets? I have talked with 10 lawyers, no one is able to give me an answer that can tokenization happen on real assets?
On real estate or
Real estate, unlisted equities,
Okay.
solar assets, it's not happening. I mean, I've read so many laws, talked to so many lawyers, everyone is giving me a blank answer that if you're doing it on your own risk. India में नहीं कर सकते आप.
Okay, just to answer that question, in fact, I clearly mentioned blockchain and crypto technically is not regulated in this country. So, to doing it in India is at your own peril risk. First question. However, if you want to do it, tokenization of real estate is possible, and in fact, Rohan, Surya, I, and
No, so even I went on Verizon
One
website.
second, let me answer that
Sorry,
question.
sorry.
Legally I've been advising them on a model to create this tokenization of more on real estate rather than on other platforms, and if it was on real estate, it can be copied and pasted and modified for other assets. There are some hitches that were not implemented as yet, including registration and transfer property from one person to another using that tokenization process because of the government regulatory issues. So that's a process we have to come to terms with. But yes, there has been some movement in that front. To what extent we can't disclose that right now because I'm not foolproof. I don't want to.
So Apurva, this is two things. One is the opinions that I have got, I love to share with you on offline basis. So maybe we can discuss it offline also. Second is, I know that there are multiple platforms who are now trying to do it. Be it Riser, be it RealX, be it Alt DRX, right? So everyone, be it this one, Mars Capital, who is trying to say that okay, we are tokenizing unlisted equities, right? And you can invest with as low as 5,000 rupees. None of them are clearly coming out with what the laws are covering on them.
Okay.
None of them
Let
are.
me answer that question to you. All the examples which you gave me, they have not issued tokens.
That's what I'm saying. They have not implemented it so far.
Correct.
They are just announcing it.
They're announcing it. None of them
Yeah.
have issued tokens against any of the asset class which you mentioned.
Correct.
Okay. I have personally spoken to 2-3 of the platforms
Right.
and invested in some of the platforms just to see the end user
Correct.
experience, not
Correct.
that it's going to make me enough money from that
Correct.
investment.
Correct.
But none of them are into what we call fractional ownership or issue of tokens or anything the way it should be. Okay, so those examples you gave me are actually the wrong examples. Okay, so that's why as I said earlier, we can have this conversation offline. I don't want to take the larger time on it. I know these 3 people along with me, I've been advising for the last few months on this issue. Therefore, I have sort of in-depth analysis on the tokenization of real estate more than tokenization of any other platform. I'm being very honest about that. There is still a lot of work to go in it. We'll discuss that offline.
So, because my lawyer has very distinctly told me and he has given me a whole opinion that how tokenization on real estate बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता. That is totally against law.
Why? One second.
Change your lawyer.
Change your lawyer. Tokenization हो सकता है. The ways and means of doing it.
Yeah.
The ways and means of getting smart contracts. The only challenge is restriction of the at the sub-registrar's office. That's a procedural thing, not a substantive law. So there's a distinction between substantive law and a procedural law. That's something which you need to incumbent or follow the procedural law, get them to come and register that stuff so that there's no issue. Substantive wise, it is possible. Let's stop this conversation here because I think in the larger interest of larger group, we'll have this conversation.
Coming to the conclusion there, don't you think the tokenization based on actual assets is actually more legal than based on unbacked and nothing at all?
I wouldn't see either legal or illegal.
Yeah.
Whether backed by asset or not backed by asset.
If you're using just the ledger for just management of
But
representation
so
of goods.
surprisingly, the government under the VDA Act, it says that if your token or crypto is actually backed by asset, it will not come under VDA. That's a very good point. That the government has taken.
Yes, so it's not a VDA, so then it's normal. It's a normal.
But then again, as he said, the only issue is that then token or blockchain will not be treated as a legal proof of the ownership in India.
Because until registration doesn't happen.
Whatever.
So that's the issue which we are tackling. Secondly, if we are having, let's take it under the Security Contract Regulation Act, SCRA, which I discussed briefly in my presentation. If I am using a product out of an asset, that technically becomes a derivative.
Yeah. Correct.
Which is recognized with SCRA. So a token which is asset backed can technically be
You're right. It could become security asset.
a derivative which in turn becomes a security.
Right.
Okay. So that's how we have to train, and that's how we are trying to work it on. So that's why I said a token is possible. Substantive law, I will say challenge, is the procedural law which we are yet to overcome. And that's why I would like to say, just stop this area of discussion. We can take it offline to my office or whatever you want. That's not an issue, but I think in the last interest of time.
Yes, let's see that. So coming to the final question is, Anuradha, you were also mentioning, what do you think is the application of blockchain to even change the legal industry itself, or if you can innovate in that? What can be domains, or what do you think solutions can be, probably with digital signatures or with the contract itself?
There are a couple of solutions, but obviously, like we just spoke about, registration of documents is an issue. So, if you take my trademark example, if you are trying to evidence use, that's not something that needs to be registered, or there's no formal process. Basically, for trademarks, for example, if someone contests my application and I'm trying to give evidence that I have been using this, my evidence could be an invoice, it could be an email that I sent to my partner where I mentioned my trademark, it could be anything, it could be an Instagram post. Okay, so blockchain in those cases works if I can sort of code my brand into a smart contract. I think a tech expert would be able to advise on how to do that. But basically, where it provides a timestamp, that's what helps when it comes to blockchain technology. But when it comes to anything where a document has to be registered or a legal procedure has to be followed, that is where things get a bit more.
In fact, just to add to what she's saying, I think the media's reported sometime back. I've received the last 4-5 days. I think there's an AI legal robot which is actually fighting a case in the courts in China.
Oh wow, in China.
So it actually does away with lawyers like us,
Yeah.
litigating lawyers, I would say.
I think there are also courts now, there are also countries now where basically when you serve someone and tell them that they're in court, you can do that through an NFT, I believe. It's not happening in India. I do not foresee it happening in India anytime soon. But that's something that's happening abroad as well.
And with regards to ownership, and recognizing the ledger's status as the current status of ownership as well, if we add it in the memorandum of association itself, that the token or ownership is managed through the ledger, and the latest status on the ledger is the representation of the ownership, wouldn't that give some weight to it, or is that not a fact?
Because procedurally, the rest of companies have to be informed of that data. So it's not only the, okay, let me just take a step back. Even in property and even in the companies or wherever you guys own, there are two levels of change of ownership. One is in the company's books. That can happen through blockchain or whatever technology they use, because the company will recognize it's not an issue. Second is at the government or the statutory level. And unless the government or the statutory doesn't recognize blockchain as a tool to effect such transfers, you still have to go by the legal procedure as prescribed in the relevant law and get that transfer done. Okay, so that's why when I mentioned about fractional ownership properties and substantive law, yes, I made create a token, but I still have to go to the registrar's office to get that token registered. But that's the when at the statute level, at the government level, the change of ownership will happen. Little louder, I can't hear you.
I'm saying my question was that when you spoke about tokenization, so we have seen that a lot of our institutional bodies also having to come in support of such ideas. Like we don't see CII coming in and publishing a paper on this, or you don't hear NASCOMs or even the SOCHAMs coming out. So how can we even involve these bodies? Because the reason why I'm asking is, when you have the biggie players also in the game, then it creates a kind of understanding to the government as well. Now I don't want to bring the real estate thing up because it was very heated, I could see, but when I remember I had gone to someone to just meet him and fetch him about this concept, I had a lot of developers threatening me that they will kill me if I ever try to ever do this. So the mafia in this industry is very high. And I'm not kidding some normal developers, I'm one of the biggest players in the industry. So this is the kind of aspect we are facing also in this space, that we want to do something but they don't want to make it that transparent too. They want to hide some things also in the dark. Like it can't be black and white. There needs to be something grey. That's what they will often say. So I met Eknath Shinde about this talk. He was like, "Me kahi karu shakat nahi. I get votes from these people because these builders build these houses for the people. The people vote them. They get power, so they can't do anything to destroy or
Not they
disturb.
can't, they don't want to.
Want to. Correct. That's
a
the
better word.
Yes. So that's why I said, like, I also am seeing, like, trying to understand what real life use cases could be built in this space, because it's a very big space. You have DeFi, you have NFTs for preventing counterfeiting, but I am not seeing the biggest entrepreneur talking about, like Anand Mahindra or even some of the best Twitter active entrepreneurs. They don't comment anything. So.
They wouldn't also. Okay, especially in a country like India, let me be very honest, and we can be off the cuff for this. The middle class does not exist for the politicians today.
Yes.
We don't go out and vote. We have 30 of us. How many have voted in the last elections in the country?
So even if you vote, it doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Middle class for them does not exist. It's either super rich who fund their election campaigns and do that, or the other class who actually vote for them. So unless they don't see an actual compulsion to do it, nothing this is going to move. So keep silent, let it build the grey area, exploit to the maximum and work towards it.
Also understand one thing, that the Indian government, if you listen to what finance minister keeps saying, that cryptocurrency is bad. RBI says keep bad. So none of the big industrials, all industry houses will ever oppose that move. Because they do not want to go against the finance ministry or the PM or whatever. Because India में तो उल्टा हो रहा है, the finance ministry is telling the whole world to ban crypto. It's the other way around. So they will never go against that thing. So I don't think it will happen.
If they have too much to lose.
Yeah.
When somebody recognizes ownership or IP for a particular NFT or let's say token, any digital asset, what do you recognize? Do you recognize its essence or do you recognize the code? What exactly? How lost is it?
Sorry, did you say do you recognize the
You
essence?
recognize the essence, like it's a creativity or the content, whatever. If it is
The
art,
value.
Okay, so are you talking about an NFT in particular and the asset attached to an NFT?
let's take NFT. Let's take example of NFT. It's an image, NFT of an image. Now there is an actual image, there is an NFT of it. Now I have bought an NFT, and let's say I have copyrighted. I have also the rights for the original one. So I was earlier working with an artist in this. So let's say if I have an NFT and all the rights to it, all the intellectual. So what exactly the law is recognizing? Whether it's recognizing that art or whether recognizing it's a digital code at the end of it. So is it recognizing that code sequence? The exact sequence, because it can also be brought under intellectual property.
No, so like I said, an NFT itself is not intellectual property. It's basically just tokenized code on the blockchain network, right? But the asset that is attached to it, whether it's a physical asset or a digital asset, that's where the rights lie. So if you purchase an NFT of a film, okay, from an NFT marketplace, it doesn't mean you get ownership over the film. You'll only get rights to probably watch the film. You may get rights to allow someone to borrow that NFT and watch the film. That's what marketplaces are doing now as well. But you don't have rights to display the film. You don't have rights to perform anything in that film in public. But those rights can be given away as well. If you look at the luxury industry, okay, Gucci has created a metaverse on Roblox. It's a metaverse platform where you can basically enter the Gucci world. You can take a photo with Miley Cyrus. She's an ambassador of Gucci. You can buy a Gucci digital handbag as an NFT, but that does not mean that you get ownership of an actual Gucci bag. So if you're buying an NFT of a Gucci bag, you don't get a physical Gucci bag with it, but Gucci can decide to give you the bag with it. So that's what a phygital NFT is. Jewelry brands are doing it now as well, where basically you will buy an NFT and then you will also get a necklace with that NFT. It's attached to the necklace. But that has to be contractually parted with. It's not something that's automatic. And the rights will exist in that underlying code.
And can the ownership of these NFTs or the content rights be transferred without what he was mentioning, the government side of the ledger being updated. You just transfer the
Yeah.
rights. That
Yeah, you
works
have to see
on
if
the-
you are assigning any rights in anything, you have to pay some stamp duty. So you can have an agreement where stamp duty is paid in that agreement, because if you assign intellectual property rights, stamp duty is required to be paid.
But for every transfer as well, we have to register with the government again? Okay.
No.
It can't be just,
Sorry, for secondary sales, it's not very easy to do that. It's not possible to do that. Because that secondary sale may not even be happening in your country. Right? That's why these NFT marketplaces are setting up abroad. If the NFT marketplace is in Singapore, but I as a creator give my rights to that NFT marketplace saying, okay, you mint NFTs out of that, you sell it to whoever, I will get a royalty from that first sale. I may even get a royalty from subsequent sales. Mostly that's how royalties work. But the rights that I am giving to the NFT marketplace, if I am saying you will make an NFT of my film, the agreement for that licensing agreement, ideally some stamp duty should be paid. But when the NFT marketplace is selling it further, that marketplace is in Singapore, it may sell the NFT to someone in the US, it may sell it to someone in Australia. Indian government has no involvement with that. Sorry.
okay then, that's all. Let's thank our speakers for Let's head over to the snacks.
Hi guys, my name is Mirza. I'm here from the Blockchain Boys podcast. I'm also an NFT artist, and today's event that Time Chain Labs has arranged, especially because it's such a pressing topic, which is law and legality when it comes to the blockchain in a country that we are living in, like India, is a very, very nice initiative. It's a very important initiative that I feel a lot more people in the blockchain space should be attending, should be coming to. Definitely opens you to a lot of different thoughts and of possibilities that can happen in the future of your own business or your own endeavor if you are doing a blockchain based task. And also the kind of people, the panel they had today did seem to have a lot of knowledge, and it also gives you a very reassuring feel of community along with whatever you're building has good people with good knowledge to back your questions. So yeah, overall it was a very nice event. And looking forward to connect with people here, and yeah, let's save the blockchain.
Guys, this is Nirav here, co-founder of Ultra Genius. So I attended this event with the B3 community, and it was an amazing event. Met a lot of interesting folks. Speakers were great in terms of the kind of knowledge that they had in the subject matter. I attended as means the event for legal advice on how to set up entities in India for Web3 startups. So the speakers Apurva and Anuradha were great, and the overall group is pretty exciting to meet with. So I'm looking forward to attending many more events, and I really appreciate all the efforts put in by the founders for this.
Startup in the country, and good to learn the perspective of legal experts and what does it take to have a startup which is more regulatory compliant. I will ask other guys to come and be a part of this association. They are doing a lot of work in this space, and it is going to be very interesting. So the whole idea is to learn quickly in terms of collaboration, and there's a lot more to learn from the BSV Association. Please come and learn. Thanks to Time Chain Labs and BSV Association. Good to learn how do we start a Web3 startup in the country, and it was great to learn from Apurva and Anuradha and what are the things we need to take care of when we are going to start a Web3 startup in the country. I'll request everyone to be the part of these meetups, enjoy and learn, and how do we can quickly start a new startup in the country without much of hassles.
And above all, it was so easy to understand that I thoroughly enjoyed my time, and I would rather even urge people to come in large numbers, because the reason is when people don't know the basics and the foundations don't get clear, how can we even think of building a unicorns? So this is the stepping stone to success, I should say. And therefore I would advise people to not miss such opportunities, because legal aspects are the key for any companies to grow, not just web3, even web2. So a lot of things were unraveled, and we really loved it. And what more can I say? It is just a pleasure to be here, meeting old friends, and to even chat and network with such influential people is thorough pleasure. And thank you for organizing such a lovely event. It was a pleasure.
I had a great time at today's event that was organized by Time Chain Labs.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I start again?
Yeah, you can start again. You can come here. Start.
Hi everyone, I had a great time today at the event organized by Time Chain Labs. I was a speaker, gave a talk about the IP strategy for startups in Web3, and also was a part of a panel discussion which was organized really well. The co-working space that it was organized in was really nice, very accessible too. And you'll definitely get to meet other founders in the space who you can learn from as well. So highly recommended. Thank you.
C.A. Sagar Jaivan, and I was one of the participants of today's meet, which was organized by Time Chain Labs. And this blockchain and time, this is absolutely new concept, and very few chartered accountants are trying to understand this, and we only know that this concept has a bright future. Here we met a lot of people who were co-founders of some new ideas and startups, and actually I was too excited to meet all of them, and I became at least 20 years younger, and I got a lot of new knowledge and ideas, and I would like to be part of future meetings as well. And I would suggest those who are not actually into the technical field like me, chartered accountants, lawyer, they should also come and attend, so that they will understand what's happening around and where we are heading to in the time to come. Thanks, sir.
Hi, I'm Apurva, founding partner Universal Legal. It was a privilege for me to come and attend this event today as a speaker, and to speak on the legal issues related to blockchain and how to start a new business related to blockchain. I was surprised and intrigued by such a large community being present in Bombay, and the kind of interaction I had with people at least 10 to 12 years younger to me. I'm happy to be a participant and wish Time Lab and BSV a long and good future, and would love to attend more of these events in the future as a participant or as a